to Scoundrels, Inc., another Star Wars podcast. I am Frank Janish, and this week I am joined by Jarod The Dark Jedi from the Nerd Academy podcast, and today we are talking about Ahsoka Part 6.
Maybe.
Far away. Maybe, Jarod. How you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm excited to talk about this episode. Always happy to come by Scoundrels Incorporated, and it's a wonderful episode.
Oh yeah, we're
gonna watch it 2 times now, and the second time, the things that didn't work for me the first time worked really well.
Excellent, because we're definitely going to chop it up in this episode. There's a lot to get into, a lot to talk about and theorize, and we're going to throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. Last week, actually, on the show, I jokingly kind of predicted the title of this episode. I said, oh, what are they going to call next week's episode? Far, far, far away? And I won too many fars, and I almost nailed it. Because when it popped up on screen, far, far, far away, I was like, I was like this close. I could have, been a genius for, 2 seconds.
So you and I had similar moments, because a little peek behind the curtain, I'm going to be on Alden Diaz's show, Octo Radio, here soon. And He came to me and he was like, the episode I want to do is basically what is your dream pitch for a Battlefront 3? And he hit me with the ultimate bait and switch of now prepare, have as many notes as you want. It can be broad strokes. It can be super detailed. And Alden knows me. Alden knows that the last time he approached me to be a guest on Octo Radio and hit me with I leave the detail level up to you was what turned into the 2-part multi-podcast feed crossover, The Fandom Menace and How We Got Here,
yeah.
where I wrote an entire historiography of Gamergate. So he knew what I was going to do. So I sit here looking at 6 separate documents I've written for that episode, but one of the things I was outlining was DLC packs I would do, and the one I have for Ahsoka is called Far, Far Away Galaxy.
Excellent.
And I wrote that Saturday night.
Oh wow! Okay, very cool.
We both were ahead of the curve on this.
You're a little bit
title.
there, yeah. It only makes sense to kind of do that sort of thing for this episode.
Absolutely, yeah, it works perfectly. And that was honestly the one thing I wasn't super in love with when I first watched it. Was it didn't quite hit for me because it felt mildly too telegraphed by Huyang.
Oh sure.
That he was History of the Galaxy parts 1, 2, and 3, and I'm like, okay, it's the trilogies. Okay, I get the joke. And then when he hit it the first time, I kind of groaned and rolled my eyes. And it was less with the episode title and more with Huyang saying it.
Sure.
But the second time, I was like, I got a little verklempt. I was like, okay, actually, no, this works. This works really well. So I warmed up to it.
Yeah, I think I also kind of was like, oh man, they're gonna do it. He's gonna say the thing, and he said it verbatim basically. And I was like, you know what, that's actually kind of cool, because I was a little like, I don't know how this is gonna work. Is it too meta? Is it this, that, and the other? But I think it's a fun nod to the series, the franchise overall. So
yeah,
I didn't mind it, and it's just, you know what, we're telling stories, we're telling Star Wars stories, and Huyang is just like us, you know. So that was pretty cool. Before we get any further into our thoughts on the episode, want to remind everyone out there, if they could hit like on this video and leave a comment down below, as well as subscribe to our channel for the rest of our coverage on Ahsoka and beyond Ahsoka. Greatly appreciate it. Helps the channel out a lot. You can also follow us on our social handles, the app formerly known as Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads, Brandon Hannah's favorite platform. And then we also have a podcast feed. You can find us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So please subscribe to the podcast feed. Would help us out a lot over there as well. Also, announcement in the next couple of weeks, whatever it's going to be. in our Discord. You can join our Discord by hitting the link in the description if you choose to do so. I'm going to be doing a virtual screening of my Revenge of the Sith Clone Wars cut, if you will. It's taking the Siege of Mandalore arc, and I interspersed it with Revenge of the Sith. It's basically a 4-hour cut of the movie. Going to be doing a virtual screening in our Discord channel. So if that's something you're interested in, you can join our Discord. You hit that link and let me know what's a good time for you, because I'm trying to get it scheduled, and it's probably going to happen sometime after the Ahsoka finale. So again, it's gonna be a lot of fun. You have the Siege of Mandalore. It's going on at the time when Obi-Wan and Anakin go off to Coruscant. It was really fun to put together. So again, we're doing a virtual screening in our Discord.
Did you make a crawl? Did you make a new crawl for it?
You know what? You gotta tune into the virtual screen and see what I did in the beginning.
Sizzle, sizzle.
Yeah, that's right. And once again, we'd like to express our solidarity with SAG-AFTRA and the WGA. Hopefully, they are getting closer to striking a deal. I heard there's more or in-depth talks, I guess, or getting together, and hopefully something gets resolved soon, and that way we can kind of get back into the swing of things in terms of production, and everybody can get their jobs back and start moving forward. So hopefully that comes to a great conclusion for all parties involved.
Yes.
Anything else, Jared?
No, man. I mean, listen, there was that article a few weeks ago that was basically talking about how, the studios just kind of have to just take the L at this point. They've failed. The unbridled greed has been laid bare for everybody to see. There's all these crazy exploits. There's what was that headline about how many gajillions of dollars Disney's going to be pumping into their parks division to enhance that, where it's like a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of that budget alone would solve and meet the demands of the actors and writers who are striking right now. So if the studios can finally pry their heads from their asses and just take the L and do right by their employees, we all win.
Absolutely. All right. So here we are, part 6, titled Far, Far Away, directed by Jennifer Getzinger. I think this is her first ever directed Star Wars show. Her first Star Wars. And what a Star Wars it was, because we begin this episode in purrgil hyperspace, and I was wondering what it was going to look like, because it's a different type of route, it's a different type of speed you have to do, obviously, and it was like a rainbow bridge of sorts. I thought it was just really cool.
It was kind of crackling with that multicolor, because it was mostly the classic like blue streak, and with a little bit of that multicolor thing kind of going through the vortex.
Yeah, it was really cool, and it looked the same thing too for the Eye of Sion. So obviously, it's like this speed and this route, basically. Maybe it's more or less the route as opposed to the speed, but nonetheless, it's intragalactic travel at this point, and fascinating. We're in a whole different part of Star Wars at this point, and so it was really, really fascinating. But inside the T6 shuttle with Ahsoka and Huyang, Huyang brings up the history of the galaxy, parts 1, 2, and 3. You can look at that in many different ways in terms of whether it's the prequels, which movie in the sequels or trilogy, what have you. But I thought that was a cool little nod, if you will, to the Star Wars franchise, if you will, the movies, the saga series at least. And then really, I don't know, Jared, if you've gotten this feel that Huyang is kind of like, because he is from the Jedi Order of old and I guess present of whatever's left of it, he kind of serves as a little, in a way, kind of like a Jedi Master in a way to Ahsoka, because they talk about Sabine and how the decision that she made to go with Baylan and Morgan Elsbeth to Peridea, and he talks about her fear, and he's like, that your fear is that she went there willingly and that she made a selfish choice. How do you view Huyang's relationship with Ahsoka and that kind of back and forth dynamic?
I find it fascinating. I think that Huyang is in many ways the last vestige of the Jedi Order as an institution. Like the institution of the Order is gone. then that's irrevocable. That infrastructure, the building blocks of the order are gone. It's it's the individuals right now, and you have Luke trying to like reestablish those building blocks in the foundation. So you're right in many ways that Huyang is basically the closest thing to a Jedi Master that Ahsoka could confide in and kind of guide her in this moment. I know, and I think with him there is kind of this like sagely grandpa vibe to him. Like he feels like a grandparent in many ways, not just because he is basically as old as the Order itself, but kind of like a grandparent. Like the responsibility of discipline does not fall to him, so he can kind of just level with you.
Yeah,
a lot easier. There doesn't have to be the kind of frontward facing element of I must discipline you for this infraction or whatever. He can just kind of speak plainly and directly. Pardon me. So I do find their rapport very refreshing and very fascinating, and I do like that idea that in many ways he is kind of like the last master she has.
Yeah, when he talks about History of the Galaxy parts 1, 2, and 3, and she is initially like, no, maybe another time. I was like, no, come on, I want to hear this stuff. I was like, come on, we got to get something. And they get into the Sabine talk, and then she's like, you know what? Actually, just tell me a story, because I don't really want to deal with this right now or think about this anymore. Which is interesting because when she comes out of the world between worlds and she's kind of quote unquote reborn. You kind of think, oh, she's got a clear head. She can see everything clearly now in front of her. But yet she is still grappling with what Sabine did, and still has a thought of Sabine did a selfish thing. So she's still, I think, wrestling with this stuff. And I kind of like that, as opposed to just washing it all away and being like, oh, you know what? Okay, everything's great. I get it now. Because I think that'd be kind of weird for Ahsoka just to make that flip right there and then. I'd still like that she's dealing with that decision, and it's a bit of a hurdle for her, and now she's getting counsel, if you will, from Huyang on this matter.
Well, I do think in many ways, like that renewed focus is still very much there.
Oh, sure.
I think that where she is with Sabine is I think it's equal parts a concern of like, I don't know what has happened since she basically surrendered to Team Thrawn. She has no idea what happened after that. And that, I do think there is a disappointment as a teacher that she did make like a selfish decision, and one that in many ways in very Star Wars fashion may pan out to be nowhere near as bad as you'd think. I think it's very Star Wars that if you look back now, like let's flip the script and say that Ahsoka and Sabine successfully subvert Morgan Elsbeth and Baylan Skoll, and they get the map and they figure out what they need to do and how to get to Peridea. It's then Sabine and Ahsoka, maybe Hera, going into the Lion's Den, having no idea what they're getting themselves into, having no idea that Thrawn has a full-fledged army on the Chimera still, and not only that, has the aid of like of some top tier like Mother Talzin level Nightsisters. So in a way, Sabine creating a situation where they're able to like let Thrawn come to them and give them a chance to maybe subvert him upon his arrival might end up being the accidental best case scenario, because I don't like Ahsoka and company's odds if they're the ones who go to Peridea cold.
Sure.
Like I think again, Ahsoka's best chance of survival, in my opinion, at this point, is if she and the Chimera are quite literally like ships passing in the night.
Mm-hmm.
That they just miss each other, because Ahsoka will be immediately attacked. And so Thrawn says, like, if any space whales approach orbit, eliminate them with extreme prejudice. So, I think it'll be very everything happens for a reason. Trust in the Force. The Force works in mysterious ways by the end. But by the same token, I do think Ahsoka is very justified in these, like, I don't know if they're doubts, but just concerns and worry about what's going on with Sabine.
Yeah, I do like that Huyang is like, hey, look at the other side of the coin. Look at the other side of the coin, because Ahsoka, you're only looking at it from your angle of this could all be ended, and she's right in that stance. But take a look at the other side of the coin. Maybe this was the only thing that Sabine felt like she could do, and so I think Huyang in that moment's like, maybe try a little understanding from Sabine's standpoint. And so I think hopefully Ahsoka takes that under consideration as we move into the next episode. But so both parties eventually arrive. Well, the bad guys, they arrive at Peridea, and it's a fascinating kind of boom. Here we are in this new galaxy, and it looks like a planet that kind of looks like a little bit like Saturn with the rings, but then we find out it's actually, this is the homeworld of the Nightsisters. This is where they originated from. And, oh, by the way, this is a purrgil graveyard, and it's just metal as all hell. And
purrgil graveyard fucking psych. I always forget if I can cuss or not. I always mean to ask, and then I forget, and then I just say it. The purrgil graveyard goes so hard.
Yeah.
Very, very Lion King-esque. I love it.
First thing I thought of as well, actually. Yeah. So we get into Peridea, and they land, and then we get our first look at, well, first of all, I mean, there's just statues around and things like that. It's very, I mean, this is so eerie.
Those Nightsister statues always gave me the creeps in the Clone Wars and in Fallen Order. Like, those, like, mouth agape. Like, they are so unsettling in a very specific way. If you'll grant me getting into weird esoteric internet nonsense, there's I believe it's called the Mandela catalog, the Mandela something, where it's just like it's this internet like ARG story that like has to do with like unholy doppelgangers, and like part of it is like the weird facial proportions. Mm-hmm. So ever since I got into that, like the Nightsister statues that already freaked me out, are like a little bit more uncanny with like the weird, like, you know, almost unhinged ghost face mouth.
Right, totally. So we get to these three mothers, and I mean, they're like full blown Mother Talzin looking type of knights. There's nothing like Morgan Elsbeth, so we're like, oh, these are the real deal, right?
Yeah.
And upon the end of the episode, in the credits, we get names for the Great Mothers.
I saw that in your notes that I didn't read the credits, that I saw the names, and I was just like, damn.
Because they credited, so they have the three actresses for the Great Mothers and the person who acted the part, or was the part of Enoch. We'll get to him too. He's really cool. But the Great Mothers is Atrapa, Clothau, and Lachesis. It's all Greek mythology. Look this up. It's all Greek mythology type of thing. And it plays into Morai again and other parts of, again, with mythology with Baylan and Shin and all that stuff. So Dave Filoni is really diving into the mythology and pulling things out of there, much in the same way that George Lucas did when he was creating the original trilogy. So it makes sense that he's going to fall in line or follow in the footsteps of what George set up originally. Absolutely.
And like the replications of, you know, like real world mythologies and histories, like it was something George like dipped his toe into, mm-hmm. but like he would like, I don't think he ever cranked it up like this. Not that I can
no,
think
I don't think
of.
so. Yeah.
And that's what I love, but I love that Dave is doing it, you know? Like, I was watching the episode tonight with my girlfriend, and she was like, I don't think it ever clicked with her. She hasn't seen Rebels, and she's seen about a third of the Clone Wars. But she's heard me like mention Thrawn's ship, but I don't think it was until today it clicked where I was like, there's the Chimera. And then she went, why do they have Greek mythology? And I was like, because it sounds cool as hell.
Yeah.
It sounds wizard.
Yeah.
Honey. Just 100%. Accept it. But no, like, so yeah, like stuff like the Chimera, and you know, it's beautiful. It's wonderful Star Warsiness. And I think it's part of why I think Ahsoka is the most mythic feeling Star Wars anything.
Oh, absolutely.
Like there's a lot of the mythos in a lot of things. There's a lot of like plays about legacy and things like of that nature in the sequel trilogy. But like this is the most mythic and mystical Star Wars has ever been.
Absolutely. One thing also about this homeworld of the Dathomiri is apparently they were the first to harness and ride the purrgil before time was counted. This is what Morgan Elsbeth says, and now I bring this up because if the Great Mothers and Thrawn are trying to escape this galaxy, and if the Dathomiri had once used the purrgil, have ridden the purrgil to venture into the Star Wars galaxy, how come they're not able to do that now? That's what I'm curious. They do call it, it's like the end of a migration pattern for the purrgil, not to mention a graveyard where they go and lay to die. So I'm wondering why they're not able to use the purrgil to escape. I wonder what has happened. Now, I'm curious if they'll explain that in the series, but also when we're with the Great Mothers, this line kind of threw me for a little bit, and kind of what they did with it is when the Great Mothers say it reeks of Jedi, and they turn their focus to Sabine. Now, I know Sabine's training to be a Jedi, or at least in the ways of the Jedi, but if anyone should reek of Jedi, I would think it would be Baylan, even though he's disillusioned with the Order, as we find out a little bit later in the episode when him and Shin are talking. But it was interesting to me that the attention was drawn to Sabine, and I'm wondering more about, am I supposed to read into that a little bit more? Will that have implications in the last 2 episodes? Did you find that line interesting or peculiar about when they turned the focus to Sabine?
No, I dug it, and I think a lot of it was because I liked the implication that even though, again, I do think we're going to see Sabine like straight up touch and use the Force before the end of the 8th episode. However, the idea that like it reeks of Jedi, like, it's because Baylan is steeped in the dark side. Like he is, whether or not he's like a card carrying Sith, or right. we can have the dark Jedi conversation. Y'all bore me. My name is cool.
That's good.
But all the joking aside, like I think it is because she is so steeped in the light side because of the people she's surrounded by. Like, Sabine's character has been mildly called into question because of the decision she made in Fallen Jedi. But I think that we need to remember who she is surrounded by and the causes she's always fought for. So it does not surprise me that she, quote unquote, reeks of Jedi, because like she's riding with Ahsoka and she's riding in a Jedi shuttle and she's, trying to find Ezra Bridger, and she was trained by Kanan Jarrus, and like she is surrounded by the legacy of the Jedi, so that doesn't surprise me. As for like the idea of like Thrawn and company catching a ride on a purrgil, I think that like, again, aside from whatever like not fun because there's no story answer, I think it's because like the purrgil that are coming to Peridea are like I don't think they're strong enough. Like I think they give their last hurrah going to Peridea. So like the ones that would be coming to that planet already are the ones that are kind of on their last leg.
Oh, so man, like, that's pretty dark. It's kind of dark.
Oh, I mean, but if it's the end of their migration period and like it's where the purrgil go to die, like as upsetting and as dark as it kind of is, like like they've come to just kind of like roost and become one with the Force. Like,
you say that, and I can't help but think of like Ahsoka talking to the purrgil in the previous episode, like, "Hey, do you think you could jump us to where our buddy Ezra might be?" And then the purrgil are like, "Yeah, actually, we're on our way to go die. If you want to hop in our mouth, then, sure."
I would like to think of it more as like a purrgil retirement home, where it's we're gonna live out our last days in the other galaxy. We're gonna we'll be comfortable and happy.
Yeah, they're in a
there.
65 and older community. Like,
I think that's where I'd like to think the purrgil are. I would like to think that they're not coming out of hyperspace and just drifting into the rings
because
of Peridea.
I also do wonder, like, how much does that take out of the purrgil to travel intergalactic like that from one galaxy to the other?
No, absolutely.
You know? And maybe they can only jump once or twice or a few times in their lifetimes before it expels a lot on their being. I don't know. The purrgil are fascinating, week after week. So
absolutely, yeah. And the purrgil are so fascinating because they thoroughly continue to blur the line between the science and magic of hyperspace.
Totally.
For every time we do something with hyperspace that is just ship goes fast,
right,
we get another weird thing that's like it's actually a wormhole.
Yeah.
And it's like weirdly mystical because like the force is tied to hyperspace and navigating it, so like I think it is kind of a fun microcosm of Star Wars, of the push and pull between space fantasy and science fiction. Like we were talking about this as I do like the live call-in shows after each episode airs, and I think it's really cool that in this episode, Thrawn, who's kind of this icon of like the Legends version of the Empire, that for my money in many ways kind of turned into a sci-fi villain, like the Empire, like it's like a sci-fi big bad organization that was designed to refute the magic of Star Wars by a lot of Legends writers. That like it that the Empire, like each one of its villains became more and more something that felt more Star Trek-y, that and then eventually just kind of turns into, no, Thrawn and the Emperor were actually just preparing for the Vong, you silly goose, and now they're more complicated, and now we're going to justify what they did, and now it becomes this like morally gray sci-fi epic, where like now Thrawn feels more at home in Dune than he does Star Wars, and it's
Dude,
weird.
Oh my gosh.
That I love, but what I love here with that is that now we've taken Thrawn and we put him in a context that is just so aggressively the magic fantasy side of Star Wars, where now it is like ancient mystical maps, and he's working with a clan of witches, and he's on this planet that is surrounded by like samurai-esque nomads in terms of like their dress and their armor, that is, and like these little cute turtle people, like it, like they turned like this, they turned Peridea into what felt like an 80s Henson movie, to use a quote from Buck O'Brien.
I had a lot of Dark Crystal vibes, especially with the howlers and like all that stuff, for sure.
So like you take this character who again feels like, down to the fact that phonetically they sound alike. So you take what many people could kind of boil down to being Star Wars as a version of Khan, and then you transplant him to as magical and over the top as Star Wars will get. And like the weird stuff with the night troopers and like this and the weird like Greek kind of pagan vibe of all of this, like it would feel at home in a sci-fi setting, like it would add some fun flavor, but at the end of the day, like we would be back to, but like hyperspace is just going fast. Where here, like everything feels so deeply mystical and magical. Down to Thrawn saying the words, "Great sisters, I need you, dark magic again." Like it was like, man, this is so weird. And it's a cool character moment for Thrawn too, because if you think about him as this tactical genius, like you can kind of tell that he's in a place of like, okay, all right, I'll take that L on Lothal. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. You won with magic bullshit? It's magic shit? Okay. I got magic now, bitch. It's my turn.
Right.
Like I kind of love that vibe for him as well, that he's kind of like pushing back in his own way the weird magic nonsense, and that he will not lose the same way twice.
Yeah, it is kind of a departure from Thrawn as we've known him in Rebels. Like, if you just watched him in Rebels and then you look at him here in this episode, you're like, this is a guy that has to operate under a completely different pretense now, because when, I think it was season 3, was it, when he first encountered Bendu and it was like, what the hell just happened here? And now he's in this other, he gets transported to this other galaxy through the purrgil and Ezra, and now he's encountering the Nightsisters and the Dathomiri, and now he's got to roll with this, and he has no choice at this point. And so it is interesting that what is this military tactician is now having to rely, or at least be in cooperation with a mystical side of the universe, of a galaxy, far, far away. And so it really is interesting to see Thrawn having to dip a toe into this side of things that Star Wars is a lot of in the mystical and the sci-fi, so or the fantasy rather.
Yeah.
Thrawn's appearance, though, when he first arrives, is a very, very cool moment, because it starts off really with Sabine trying to move the door, and I love that they're just doing these little teases of, is she gonna move the cup? Is she gonna open the door? And you hear the rumbling, and I was like, nah, she's not doing this. But then
she's
here comes
the Force Unleashed, charged Kamehameha Force push.
Yeah.
No, it's just the Chimera.
It's the Chimera, and it comes, and you see it all broken down and haphazardly repaired with the gold, scraps, if you will. And in comes Thrawn walking down amongst all of these troops, and you see the TIE fighters hanging, and all the troops look just dirty as all hell, and they have look, they're chanting Thrawn, which is a really weird thing, because Thrawn wasn't really that kind of a bombastic type of honor me type of person in that way, like the Emperor would be, I think. And so there's a lot of theories out there about what these night troopers are all about. You had Enoch, you have this great line from Thrawn, and he says, what was first just a dream has become a frightening reality for those who may oppose us. I mean, man, that just says a lot about Thrawn right there.
It's just immediate bars from Thrawn.
Yeah.
Are you familiar? This is going to be me spending all of my cussing tokens for the episode.
Yeah.
Probably. Are you familiar with Dracula Flow on TikTok? Have you seen these
Jared,
videos?
I cannot believe you just brought this up, because not like days ago, my roommate showed me this video, and I'm like,
this shit ain't nothing to me, man.
It is one of the most insane things I've ever seen.
So, well, knowing me, all of my For You page is just Dracula Flow. And
if you don't have no idea what we're talking about out there, I dare you to look it up in an incognito tab, because it will take over your algorithm. But just be warned.
My buddy showed it to me, and I was like, "This is one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life," and I love it.
Insane.
Like it scratches at a very particular part of my sense of humor. And before we got on this call, I was trying to edit Thrawn's entrance with this shit ain't nothing to me, man.
Oh my gosh.
I'm biting the fart bubbles in the bath. We're smoking on Scooby-Doo dick.
Oh my gosh.
I was trying to get those in there. I don't want to dedicate more time than I should to this, but I want to find the specific ones of reach for me, I'll turn you into an example. They wanted initiative. I blew up their whole quadrant. It's like, to summarize it, it's Dracula Flow is what if Joe Biden spoke exclusively in killer hip hop ad libs.
Yeah, it's hard. You just have to see it for yourself, folks. Go look it up. I dare you all to go look it up, and then don't hate me if you don't like it. Don't hate us. Just go
funny.
with it.
It's deeply funny.
It's really funny. It is funny.
But I ever since Kaysen had shown me that, I was like, whenever Thrawn shows up, I really want to edit this over him speaking.
Amazing.
And
that's great.
And at this point, as much as I hate AI stuff, I just want someone to take an AI Either AI Thrawn voice and have him be like, "This shit ain't nothing to me, man."
Oh my gosh, that would be
We're
incredible.
Smoking on symbiotes, or conversely, get like an AI generated version of Dracula Flow to be like, "What was once a distant dream is now a reality." For those who would oppose us, this shit ain't nothing to me, man. Like,
oh
I
my
just,
gosh.
I need Dracula Thrawn. I need Thrawn. Trying to think, Thrawn-killa flow.
Thrawn Flow.
I need Thrawn
Thrawn Flow's pretty good. I like Thrawn Flow.
I need Thrawn Flow badly.
Yeah. That's great. Incredible. I can't even believe you brought that up, and I know what you were talking about, because
it was a Hail Mary. I was like, Frank is way too normal to know what I'm talking about.
Well, lucky for you, I have abnormal roommates in the best way, and
There you go.
Normally I get tossed some of the craziest stuff I never would have come across if it wasn't for them, and I'm grateful in most cases. This time is one of those times where I'm like, that's pretty crazy. Okay. So, but I want you to
talk
talk
the
to
stuff you don't get on an episode when Brandon and Kevin are here.
That's for damn sure.
You don't. Yeah.
But talk to me about these night troopers chanting Thrawn, Enoch. I mean, what do you think is happening here? Because there's a lot of theories and talk about, maybe this is a little bit of Marak, but like on a grander army scale, in terms of Nightsister regeneration or magic or what have you. What are your thoughts here?
So I'm not going to go so far as to say that the entirety of Thrawn's army are reanimated corpses.
Fair to say.
I am partial to the idea that what they're loading up are bodies, and Thrawn is going to go full Death Trooper on some poor.
Did you catch
SOBs?
On one of your on your rewatch? There's later in the episode. There's a close up panning shot of one of the cargo canisters crossing by, really close in the foreground, passing by, and it's like rattling. Did you catch that?
I didn't notice that it was rattling. I made a comment. I made a comment about it potentially being a body, and that they're gonna have an army of zombie stormtroopers.
But also the fact that it's gonna take them 3 days to load. I mean, that's a lot to load. I'm sure in 3 days, and I'm sure it's like a round the clock operation. Yeah. And so if he's trying to bring back an army of the dead for the Nightsisters, the Dathomiri to resurrect once they get back into the old Star Wars galaxy, if that's his plan and it actually happens, insanity.
I have such a soft spot for the Death Troopers novel that part of me doesn't want it.
Okay.
Because I like zombie stormtroopers completely isolated to the eerie isolation of that novel and how deeply chilling it is. Especially the Operation Blackwing stuff. And have you read Death Troopers? Are you familiar?
I have not.
It's good. It's good. Okay. Star Wars zombies is a tough sell. I mean,
I don't necessarily think they're going to be zombies, but I think they might be more Nightsisters rather than deceased Imperial troopers. I think because since the Nightsisters are pretty much extinct in the Star Wars galaxy, I think perhaps maybe the Great Mothers want to once again transfer their people again back to this repopulate, if you will.
Yeah.
And they're going to be using, because there is an agreement that Thrawn speaks of, right?
Yeah.
Between them, and I wonder if it's like, you help me and I will help transfer your Nightsisters to this galaxy to retake Dathomir or what have you, or something like that. I wonder if it's something along those lines, because there is an agreement, and he does reference that he has used their magic before at the end of the episode when they're talking about Ahsoka, and he's like, I need your magic once again, or I request your magic once again.
See, I wasn't too super taken aback. Again, aside from how hard that line went, I wasn't super taken aback by it, because they're already doing this thing where they're like the fates. Like
Yeah.
he was like, y'all didn't tell me there was going to be a prisoner who came, and she's like, well, we didn't know. The Force didn't tell us. So I think part of it might just be him being like, hey, like I'm gonna need you to go hard in the paint for me here to deal with Tano.
Yeah.
And I think that's he's getting at there. But no, I mean, again, I'm ready. I'm ready for whatever at this point. It's all just been so buck wild, and the idea that like Marok was this huge like what's going on, man type thing, just for him to die the way that he did, that it then turns into oh no, this was but a taste. Of
I think
Thrawn's
once you
machinations.
see a night trooper get killed and die the way Marok died, I think it's all going to click. Be like, okay, I see what.
Like I said, I like the idea that the night troopers are like the battered, beaten down, like remnant of what was on the Chimera during the Battle of Lothal.
Sure.
And that and again, like Thrawn, through his prowess as a leader, as a tactician, as a team player who's able to be like, hey, Nightsisters, we can be in league with each other, we can figure it out. That like they are now like so deeply devoted to him as a leader, and that like Thrawn, like he may not be seeking an army that will be like Thrawn, chanting at his arrival. But he's also like, well, I'm not going to tell them to stop. Like I've never had
a long 10 years. I could use the.
I've never had an army this dedicated to me ever, and I have them when I'm at my lowest. So, like, imagine how dedicated the Imperial remnant as a whole will be. And it's also starting to color how fascinating, like the Shadow Council scene we got in The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Where everyone's like, hey, man, where the hell is Thrawn?
Do you think Peridea was communicating with Morgan Elsbeth then? Like, if that's how he's getting his information of like, yeah, Thrawn's coming back because I heard this from a Night Sister, Morgan Elsbeth, but I'm not going to tell you the Night Sister part. I'm just going to tell you Thrawn is going to return.
Or at the very least that like Morgan Elsbeth has like contacts out there who are like, listen, like we're working on bringing back Thrawn. You just need to sit tight while we work on it.
Because I'm hard pressed to believe that Thrawn went to the Great Mothers and was like, "Hey, tell my buddy Peridea, I'm coming back." They were like, "We'll just contact one of our."
I'm sure the whole echoey voice thing will play great from a different galaxy.
Yeah, right. One thing that I do want to touch on briefly is that when Thrawn is introduced to Baylan, he knows him as General Baylan Skoll from the Clone Wars, which I thought was pretty cool, and also speaks to Thrawn's mind and how he just knew like everything about everyone, pretty much.
Well, I think it's interesting that like Thrawn obviously, like he gets into the Imperial Academy, and there's going to be some level of military history he has to familiarize himself with. So I think it's twofold. I think what you just said, that it shows that Thrawn has this like almost encyclopedic knowledge of galactic history and warfare. But also Baylan distinguished himself during the war.
Yeah.
And again, you couple that with what he says later with the whole, when I was not much older than you, I saw everything I knew burn. Like,
which is interesting because it means I feel like he might have been a little bit younger than Skywalker, somewhere in between Ahsoka and Skywalker's age, and he's a general at that point. Ahsoka was never a general. She got as high as commander, right? She was never a general. So I think, it speaks, and it gives us a little more insight into what kind of Jedi Baylan might have been during, the Jedi Order days. So I thought this line did a lot in telling of what Thrawn is all about and what Baylan used to be about,
Yeah. So Ray Stevenson, when he passed, was 58 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So if we assume Baylan is roughly that age, he is. Anakin died when he was 45, and this is 5 years later. So if Baylan and like Ray Stevenson are like roughly the same age, he may have been a little bit older than Anakin.
Okay.
But still, but I mean, and also like, you know, like the title of general was basically given to anybody who like had a military command and was above the rank of knight, or like at the rank or above of knight. Yeah. But still, like, be that as it may, with like how weird the title of general functions within the Grand Army of the Republic, like he still like he must have done something that made Thrawn go, oh man,
yeah, true.
Baylan Skoll, okay. Like that in and of itself is like that distinguishing service that makes Thrawn kind of go, oh, all right, they sent in the big guns to come get me. But I do absolutely love that, and I think that it goes a long way of showing this lineage that picks back up with what was going on with Ahsoka and her, you know, memory gauntlet that she goes through with Anakin. Of seeing that, like, no, this is all about how the Jedi were like corrupted in many ways spiritually by the war, and how like it inevitably, as any war can and will and would, starts to like mar their soul. And I think it also, again, dovetails into what Thrawn says at the end of the episode about Ahsoka, where he's like, I want to know everything about her homeworld, her master, her training, her background. I want to know everything. Like, Ahsoka is now going into this battle, though, reinforced for that stuff. She's like she is going in freshly, not, you know, she went in to fight Baylan, and she was already, like, not fully there just because she's going through a lot of emotional turmoil. And is still processing a lot of things that happened to her. The moment her feet touched that like precipice at that henge where the star map was, first words out of his mouth, Anakin Skywalker, and immediately she's off balance. Right. Immediately she is no longer back where she was supposed to be, combatively. So you take that and you expand it to where now she's in the world between worlds, and she's, you know, processing all of it with Anakin. Now she comes to face Thrawn, who's going to think, oh, you're the apprentice of Darth Vader. I'm one of the few people within the Empire who knew who he was. I got my trump card on you now.
Right.
And he's going to run up against an Ahsoka Tano, you know, at least this is what I anticipate happening, who, when he goes, neener, Darth Vader, Darth Vader, boo on you, that she's not going to like be completely, you know, taken off her feet just by the mere utterance of his name. That she's going to be able to face him head on, and not fall for the tricks and not fall for the mind games, because she's beyond that now. You know, this isn't waving the Kalikiri in front of Hera's face. Like, you don't get it this easy this time, and your trump card is expired. Right.
Also, in this brief exchange between Baylan and Thrawn, you know, Thrawn does mention, of the Jedi Order, and they cut to the Great Mothers when Thrawn says Jedi, and I just want to know, and I'm sure I think this is out there somewhere, but like the history between Jedi and Nightsisters and the Dathomiri, I guess. But if these Great Mothers have, I'm almost kind of assuming they've never gone to the other galaxy, the Star Wars proper galaxy. Is there Jedi in this galaxy? Was there a form of Jedi in this galaxy? Because they seem to have such distaste for a Jedi. I mean, you reek of Jedi. Baylan was in the Jedi Order. Wait, what? You're a Jedi? And, you know, obviously Baylan's like, I'm not anymore. Like, leave me alone, type of thing. And so I'm really just fascinated what the Great Mothers / Nightsisters, what happened between these two religions, if you will, or way of people, you know, what happened to where there is, I mean, obviously one dabbles more in the dark side, and obviously the Jedi are the light, so they're going to be natural, I guess, enemies, if you will, but man, they really have it out for Jedi.
I think that there is that level of like, we are opposing like Force faiths. That is definitely part of the equation. I think the other thing that factors, to answer your other question, I have a feeling that these Great Mothers have spent time in our galaxy, that like they have traveled back and forth, maybe harnessing the purrgil, or if not, that like through magic and like the magical force communication that was on the table, they were able to do it. Like Mother Talzin, how many times did Mother Talzin die? Like,
Sure.
like, like that's kind of my litmus test for this kind of thing, is like, oh, like the Nightsisters can do so much wacky nonsense with the Force that them having an understanding of who and what the Jedi are, I'm like, yeah, checks out. But no, I do find it fascinating. I think that a lot of it is to do with, again, they think they're opposing forces. Their philosophies are incredibly different.
Yeah.
Like, and again, I don't know how much of the way we see the Nightsisters of Dathomiri behave in TCW is informed by, like, for lack of a better term, like orthodox Dathomiri stuff.
Yeah.
That would be on like Peridea or whatever. But like we see that the Nightsisters just straight up enslave like everyone who isn't of Dathomir or Dathomiri descent, on the world. Like, you have this, you have these like two tiers of society between the Zabrak on there and the Dathomiri people. So, like that on its face is going to be something that the Jedi are going to butt heads against. And the way that they use the Force to, reanimate the dead, and the way that they touch the dark side. Like, I can see why they wouldn't jive with each other, and that the Nightsisters would basically just see the Jedi as people who are coming to reign on like their interpretation of how the Force is to be used.
Yeah. It seems like they're very much threatened by the way of a Jedi. That's how I kind of interpreted their response to Sabine reeking of Jedi, and Baylan, oh, he's a Jedi, that type of thing. So interesting. I was very much anticipating a reunion between Sabine and Thrawn. I just wanted to know how that was going to go down, because obviously we know them from Rebels and their interactions and whatnot, their squabbles, and they have a really interesting exchange there. And Sabine's like, if you're doing fine, I'm sure Ezra's doing just fine. And Thrawn is like, you've gambled the fate of your galaxy on that belief. And she retorts, you wouldn't understand. And I was like, damn, got him good. And he was like, yep, you're probably right. I would not understand that. And I was just like, that's a level that Thrawn just can't meet her at, in terms of what you would do. Like, what do you believe in so strongly that you're willing to kind of go against the conventional wisdom of why you didn't stop me from returning, and you would
everything on the chance. Well, this is a conversation we were talking about this on my live stream, and I was talking about this with my girlfriend. Like, Sabine was given two options. You can guarantee that Thrawn does not return at the cost of potentially saving Ezra, or you will open the door for what will most likely be Thrawn's return for a chance at maybe saving Ezra. Because like that, and that's been the whole thing, is that like we don't know if Ezra's alive. We do know that Thrawn is. Like we as the audience know that Ezra's alive because they cast him and stuff.
Right.
But for the most part, like within the narrative, like we know that Thrawn is on his way back. Like we know about all of these machinations that the Imperial Remnant has for him. They don't know that they can save Ezra. Like there's not a guarantee he's still around. And I do love that exchange, and I do love the earnestness that you get from Thrawn. It's something that I like about him as a villain, is that like he is not outwardly deceitful in the way that a lot of Star Wars villains are. Like there's a lot of people in Star Wars who just lie through their teeth, and then Thrawn. It's not that Thrawn isn't deceptive. That's like like the art of war, nonsense.
Right.
I'm gonna get into there. He the deception is in tactics, but like you will rarely see Thrawn like look at somebody and kind of tell a bold-faced lie. And I love the fact that he just very honestly and kind of endearingly is like, you know what? I don't get it.
Yeah.
Good for you that you have this.
Yeah.
And good luck.
Yeah, and good luck to Sabine, because they're like, you know what? Yeah, you go off and you can have all your weapons back, and we'll give you a howler, and you can go off and try and
Here's
find...
a full suit of Mandalorian armor and a lightsaber back. Good fucking luck.
Yeah, and it's interesting because then you get to Baylan's agreement that no harm will come to you. You know, you'll see Ezra, blah blah blah, and Thrawn's like. Or Shin's like, you're not going to adhere to your agreement? And Thrawn's like, oh, no. We're going to let her go find him. And if she does find him, well, I guess what? The agreement's been fulfilled. And now you can take both of them out. And that's Thrawn's, plan. And Baylan, for whatever reason, is going along, is agreeing to take out Sabine and Ezra. At least right now, that's what it appears like. Because... Yeah. As we get more into, as actually Baylan and Shin go off and tail basically Sabine, we get a little bit more into Baylan's history and kind of Baylan and Shin's dynamic a little bit more. And this is after Sabine takes out those bandits and finally busts out the lightsaber and just hacks away. And they're like, it was interesting that they keyed on this one guy where she slashes him in the face, and he's like, what the hell just happened?
He's so stunned he doesn't even doesn't even react to the pain. He's still in shock of like, what was that?
Yeah, So
I
it was
also like
interesting,
the way their blasters fire is different.
Mm-hmm.
Like the plasma bolt is shaped differently than like the little they
almost look
like we're used to.
They almost look like bullet tracers a little bit.
Yeah. Almost like he shot like a fireball at her almost.
Oh, sure.
Like in the shape. But you're right with the bullet tracer thing too, yeah.
Yeah. So, let's see here. Oh, one really interesting kind of back and forth was when Thrawn, Enoch comes to Thrawn and is like, hey, Baylan and Shin left. Okay, take 2 squads to go trail them, and reinforce them. And then Morgan Elsbeth's like, shouldn't we send more? And the pause from Thrawn of like, you did not just come in here and say, should I be doing more? Who that, in his mind, he's probably like, who the hell are you to suggest such a thing? And he doesn't say that, but the pause does,
To quote Dracula Flow, motherfuckers must have had amnesia. They forgot I was him.
Incredible. It's incredible. So I really got a kick out of that exchange of because also in this moment, Thrawn's like, I could care less if we leave Baylan and Shin here. I don't need any of them to come back with me. Our prerogative, our main objective is to escape this galaxy. Whether they are here or not, I could care less. I hope they take out Sabine and Ezra. That'd be great, but I don't need them coming back with us. They don't mean anything to me, and I think we've kind of known that all along, especially when Shin and Baylan talk about finding Thrawn, and Baylan's talking about, unimaginable power or this, that, and the other, and it's like, I've said this in past episodes, Thrawn / the Empire, they don't like to share. They don't share power, right? He keeps it all for himself. So, but also it seems like Baylan has his own prerogative, and it doesn't align with Thrawn. We got some more, I guess, a little more motivation behind Baylan, but I'm still kind of like, what is he ultimately after? It's still very vague, and he's talking about there's something out there that calls to him out there, and he's asking Shin, don't you feel it? So it's all very still mystical of what is all wrapped up with Baylan, and it's still intriguing as hell, 6 episodes later.
Yeah. No, totally. The dynamic with Baylan is still so fascinating. It's something that I've talked a lot about, is that I kind of hang on every single word he says in every scene he's in. And again, this whole idea of what power is he chasing, and that, eventually, because he is the villain, he has to be wrong eventually, or at the very least almost right. So part of me is kind of hoping that it's just kind of getting to him, like that he's just like, oh well, Peridea is so mythical that its very existence means it will have something, and then like he doesn't actually have much of a plan other than like, I'll get to the magic place and I'll figure it out from there. I don't necessarily know if that's the case. It
seems like he's just basing everything on these stories he heard as a kid in the temple, and now that he knows that Peridea is real, it's like, well, maybe the rest of that stuff I was told is actually real as well, and
something else that I have in mind will come through. I do also love, you know, I said this on our stream or after show stream, I love so much that we're getting like a villain motivation from Baylan that we truthfully have not seen since KOTOR 2. That like Baylan's issue being that of we need to break the cycle.
I got Daenerys vibes. You know, we break the wheel type of thing.
Yeah, where he's like, you know, the rise of the Empire, the fall of the Jedi. It happens again and again and again and again. You know, like obviously this isn't canon, but again, looking back towards KOTOR. And like that era, you know, that block of like 1,000 or so years, how many times were the Jedi nearly eradicated? You know, how many times are there only a handful of Jedi left because the Sith came this close to fully dominating the galaxy? It keeps happening. It won't stop. And I love that Baylan's outlook on it is like, we need to break this cycle because, you know, he looks at the Jedi as a failed state. But he's also, again, he doesn't have that violent streak to him that you'd expect from a Sith. He's just so deeply fascinating.
It's interesting that he has this mindset of, I want to break the cycle, and in order to break the cycle, I need to be at the top. It seems like I need to have the power because it seems like he has this idea that he can break the cycle, and it all ends with me somehow attaining this great power, and pretty much ruling the galaxy is basically what it comes down to. And while he thinks he's gonna break the cycle, in fact he's contributing to the cycle.
And
he thinks it might not apply to him if he gains this power.
And again, I'm very excited to see like how he sees Thrawn play into this grand machination. Because again, we don't know what his plan is. We do not know what his angle is. All we know is that he keeps talking about cycles and violence and destruction and, you know, serving a greater good. That like, I think Baylan sees himself as the only person who can bring that good to fruition. And that kind of like single-minded strongman behavior is the kind of thing that gives the Empire life. So it's, man, again, I know we say, I've not been on a single conversation about Ahsoka that does not involve it is a travesty to have lost a performer as good as Ray Stevenson as early as we did. Like that loss that young is tragic regardless. And it's even more heartbreaking to have lost an amazing artist and performer. And it is even more heartbreaking that he is not around to see that he is ubiquitously one of, if not the best parts of this show, and has already become a fan favorite character. And like, you know, comparatively, Baylan has had like as much time to shine as like Vader did in A New Hope.
Totally. You
know, where it's that like, you don't see a whole lot of Vader in A New Hope. But you'll be damned if he's not the person you remember.
Right.
You know,
right,
and
totally.
That's kind of what we're getting with Baylan, is that like we've gone 2 episodes where we barely see him, one not at all. You know? Like the only moment we get of him in episode 3 is him sending out, you know, Morgan Elsbeth's thugs, and then we don't see him at all in Shadow Warrior.
Right. Yeah, it is a travesty. I think about it every week too when I see him on screen. I'm like, I can't believe he's not here anymore, and that really sucks. But
inundated with love from the fans.
Oh, 100%.
You know, and then there also comes the other mollywop of even if he was here, couldn't friggin' talk about it. But
sure.
that which is also.
But eventually, that day's gonna come. When we're all back at Star Wars Celebration, whether it's Tokyo, Anaheim, Orlando, Chicago, whatever, and there are going to be cosplay of Baylan Skoll aplenty, and there will be tributes, and rightfully so. I mean, everyone will pay respect and honor to the great late Ray Stevenson and his portrayal of Baylan Skoll.
Cannot wait for the inevitable Ahsoka cast reunion panel. Ugh. And the fact that 90% of that is just probably going to be, so when Ray did this, so when Ray did that, so when Ray did, like, because that's all it's going to be. It's just like he's a scene stealer. Every moment that Baylan Skoll is in, you just want to look at him. Mm-hmm. Like he's just.
I want to know more about him. I want to hear him talk more. I want to, there's so much I want to know about the character, which makes the character alluring. And Ray Stevenson is a big reason why it feels that way in his performance.
I've gotten to a point with my buddy Mike that he and I will literally just end up texting each other like a day or two after the episode comes out, just like whatever our favorite line from Baylan Skoll was that week. Because literally at this point, it's just like we have a Baylan quote of the week. That it's just awesome. Like, oh hey, this was my favorite this week. Like he like while we are recording, he texted me just to be like, Boken Jedi.
I mean,
that's all he said was just Boken Jedi. Just that one line, and just that, and just how every time Baylan says something, you just go, damn.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, it's great. Let's move into Sabine and, she's on the Howler now, and she kind of has this back and forth with the Howler. It's kind of cute. It's a little, this is the levity of the episode, and to kind of break it up. And then
we get a little girl and her dog to like, give us a second to catch our breath from the very like overwhelming, oh no, the tactical genius is working with the witches, and there's some weird shit going on right now.
Oh yeah. And even equally as weird or interesting is this Howler. And again, we all know Dave Filoni loves wolves, and it's a wolf type of character or animal creature, and just kind of again, Dark Crystal vibes with this type of creature, Jim Henson-esque type of design or feel, if you will. And I instantly fell in love with the Howler. I'm gonna call him Howie the Howler. That's what I've decided. That's what and also that's a shout out. If you're a Big Brother fan, it's a shout out to Howie from Big Brother. He's a big Star Wars fan. I don't know if you watch Big Brother.
Oh my gosh.
He was Howie the Jedi. I think he was known in the Big Brother house. He's like a big fan of Kevin Smets was here. He knows Howie.
What year? Because I am a Big Brother super fan, but only like up to a certain point.
He wasn't like
past a certain point, because I'm as old as the American version of
he was
Big
on the
Brother.
First All-Star season.
Okay, so it's definitely
with
before my
Janelle
time,
and like Dr. Will and all of them. So, but anyways,
before this turns into a Big Brother podcast,
But anyways, Howie the Howler and Sabine, they run into the Noti, and they're cute little rock-esque creatures, or they use them as like a shield or a home, I don't know, but really cute looking. And one of them recognizes the rebel insignia on Sabine's pauldron, and he's like, oh yeah, I know that. And then he has like a rebel insignia around his neck, and it's like, oh yeah, Ezra. And it's like, it totally makes sense that Ezra would befriend these type of creatures and become friendly and live amongst them. And then this is where we get the reunion, Jared, of Ezra Bridger, played by one Amon Esfandi. And I'll be the first to say, when we first saw that hologram in, I think, the first episode, and he's kind of not redoing, but it's a new message, or a private message that Ezra left specifically for Sabine. And I was like, I don't know how it really works. But when he appeared here, and he's got the beard, and he's wearing like nomadic kind of like garb and, clothes and stuff like that, and just their interaction, I was like, damn, I'm really digging this a whole lot. I can't wait to see more in these next 2 episodes.
Same. He brought Ezra to life so instantaneously, and just embodied the role that like it felt as though what was on the screen as a cartoon just fully came to life. It was perfect. Just flawless, like no notes. And I cannot wait to see him get to flex some more muscles when he inevitably finds out what Sabine did to get here.
And the other thing, well, I mean, there's that. That's going to be a real interesting conversation. But earlier, when Thrawn's like, go track down Sabine, they are setting up. I mean, we know this is going to happen, or we predict there will be another showdown between Ahsoka and Baylan. It only kind of makes sense, right? But they are also setting up this clash between Ezra, Sabine versus Baylan and Shin, and I think it's going to be a crazy showdown between these two. And then I think this is where the theory part here is that this is right around the part where Ahsoka's going to show up and be like, "Yo, what's going on? Hey, Ezra. Oh, Baylan's here? Okay, let's get it on." And then I think Ahsoka will defeat Baylan on this planet, and Shin will escape. I think Shin's gonna escape, but I think they're setting up for another showdown on this planet. And as they're having this great fight, perhaps Thrawn and Morgan Elsbeth are like, "See ya," and they jump out of there, and they're all like, "Wait a minute, there goes our ride."
Yeah. So, I do like the idea of like this fight happening, and Thrawn's just like, "Do you want to stay around for the space wizard bullshit, or should we leave?" I think we should leave, Morgan Elsbeth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here's the thing, and this is what I love about Baylan and Shin. I don't know what they're gonna do. I don't know. Like
who knows?
They're setting up that like I can't tell if Shin is like hanging on every word that Baylan says, like I am, or if she's like getting skeptical and isn't like drinking the Kool-Aid.
Well, she very much
is
anymore. A skeptic, I think.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
She's always like, "Wait, there's more witches. This is a wasteland. Do you miss it? There's no future here. What do you see?" She's very much a skeptic, and I think she even says at one point to Baylan's like, "Wait, you're not going to honor your agreement?" Like, as if she really cared, I felt like, at least. But then, like, I'm like, wait, maybe she's seen another side of Baylan that she doesn't recognize, of like, it's not like him to go back on his word, because that's not the Baylan I know. So you're right. I have no idea what these people are going to do.
I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know what they're going to do. It's so cool that I don't know what they're going to do.
Oh my gosh.
Like I've said before that I think it would be an interesting turn. Now I don't think it's going to happen here, because I do think Thrawn is going to be the big bad of whatever the Filoni movie is. And again, like if Baylan survives the first season, and he, I've seen the idea floating around that that you recast Baylan with Liev Schreiber.
I've seen that.
Which I'd be totally down for.
John Hoey tweeted out Gerard Butler as an option.
Hoey, that was a W Hoey take. I was like, okay, I can get down with that.
Yeah,
I get down with Butler. I'm partial to the Liev Schreiber one. I like that one a little bit more. I like Schreiber's range more, and I think he could do this like stoic dark Jedi philosopher thing a little better than Gerard Butler. But either way, I think they both do well. I
just gotta say, I'm not at the point where I want to talk about recasting. I acknowledge it. I think they're great, but I'm at the point where I want to ultimately wait and see what happens with Baylan.
Sure, absolutely.
I'm not poo-pooing like the discussion around it. I get it, and it's like a natural thing to converse about. But I will just say, I guess what I'm really saying, it's hard for me to entertain these thoughts just because I love Ray Stevenson so much in this role.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's not as much of like a cultural, like, sent shockwaves through like pop culture in terms of like representation and stuff. But it's like it's I think there's a similar freshness to when like there was a lot of like recast T'Challa stuff that like wherever you fall on that spectrum. And again, like not comparing the cultural impact there, but just that like, oh man, like this actor really just became this character and there's no way around it. And now, oh damn. But the only reason I bring up the potential of recasting Baylan so that you can keep him around is I kind of love the idea that he becomes the canon killer of Thrawn. That like that he kind of takes that Rook position.
And that, which is kind of like the Enoch, if you ask me, is like
Thrawn, you could have that happen with Enoch. That's my boy. That you could do that as well, but I just kind of love the idea of like Thrawn. I love the idea of Thrawn going out in two different ways. I either want Thrawn to go out again very like last minute, hey, you drop the ball and you need to pay for it, and Baylan puts him down. And I can just see in my mind's eye now that we've seen like live action Thrawn of that, like, you know, like it was so artfully done, or whatever his last words were in Legends, of him just kind of like with like a lightsaber gash through that brilliant white uniform. Like, you know, in the same way that like Rook just kind of stabs him and you see like the blood kind of start to seep through that, or he gets a Cutler Beckett. Is that the name of the guy from Pirates 3? Is it Beckett?
I haven't seen. Oh, I think that's right. Yes. Oh, yeah. I vaguely remember what you're talking about.
Who you're just watching the ship explode around him as he's getting it from both sides, from the Dutchman and the Pearl. They're like, I've talked about this in the group chat I'm in with a bunch of other Star Wars creators, that like that, but the Chimera.
Oh, for sure.
And you're just watching the Chimera just be blasted apart because whatever insane gambit Thrawn thought he could do, the one thing he always underestimates is the power of friendship, you know, and you're just watching the Chimera be blown to hell, and you just this face of just like resigned defeat.
Yeah.
Like I just couldn't crack it as the Chimera just erupts into flames. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah. As this episode concludes, there's another great line from Thrawn that I think is key going forward, and he says, "Death and resurrection are common deceptions of Nightsisters and Jedi." This is in regards to the Great Sisters, or the Great Mothers, being like, there's someone else coming, it's a Jedi, and Thrawn's like, it's probably Ahsoka, isn't it? And that's when he's like, I need to know everything about her. And it's going to be, you're right, you talked about it earlier, it's going to be really interesting when he's like, oh, she was trained by Anakin, aka Darth Vader. That's going to be really, really interesting. But, you know, and then he also requests the use of dark magic once again for some other purpose. I can't quite remember if it's stated in the episode or if it's just left like that. But overall, I thought this episode was fascinating from start to finish. There's so much dumped in here to really extrapolate on, which is why this episode that we're talking is running long, because there's just so much.
There's so much to unpack. There's so much to appreciate. You know, I think that, and this is not to rag on Time to Fly, just that, like, it was pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
But this run of Fallen Jedi, Shadow Warrior, Far, Far Away has been like, it's felt like a movie. Like it's felt like a Star Wars movie unto itself. There's just so much to digest here. And I think that these last few episodes are gonna make good on the back half of that promise that like the rest of the show will be as good.
Totally.
And be as beautifully dense. This is dense, to quote the great Rick McCallum.
This episode certainly feels like it's laying the table for the last two episodes, and I am so ready.
I also can't wait to see Ezra use a lightsaber, by the way. Like, just like this is sheer lightsaber go burr brain right now. Oh yeah. But like I had this thought where I was like, man, he looks so cool. He'll look so cool with a lightsaber in that outfit.
I wonder if we'll get some similar moment where we have. Remember in Attack of the Clones when Obi-Wan tosses the lightsaber to Anakin? I wonder if Sabina's like, you know, tries to do her thing and then gets kind of trapped or whatever and like tosses the saber to Ezra and then he just goes ham on whoever. Yeah. I kind of hope we have a cool moment like that because obviously, well, at least I don't think he has a lightsaber there. I don't know if he could have made one while he was there.
Yeah, perhaps he built a new one. You know, I'm of two minds. Like, part of me wants to see Ezra, like, once he gets back to the new galaxy, be like, hey, this is yours now. I'm going to build my own.
Oh,
like,
you think
Huyang is there? Huyang is there to help him build one now. You know.
You think Ezra's going to get back to the former galaxy?
Oh, absolutely.
You don't think he's going to remain in that galaxy, dead or alive?
No, he's coming home.
Okay, I don't know. There's a part of me that thinks he's not going to make it out of here. Honestly,
I don't think. I listen. Do I think it's possible that Ezra Bridger could die? Yes. Do I think that Ezra Bridger dies in season 1 of Ahsoka? No.
Okay, I don't. Maybe not. I don't. But what if he does?
Well, then don't I have a great track record of predicting shit on this show?
I don't. I just have a weird feeling that like we're gonna just, I don't know, like they save him, but he's also of this mindset, I think maybe, that he's got to, I don't know, he's got to do the sacrifice a la, Kanan, like his master before him. And so I think whether it's in season 1 or in the movie, I think Ezra will make the ultimate sacrifice. Like that's how he's going to go out. Whether it's in season 1 of Ahsoka, the Filoni movie, or maybe a season 2 of Ahsoka, if that's going to happen. So who knows? Who knows, really? Before we wrap up here, we have to get into our Discord Q&A. And by the way, brief announcement, if you've made it to this part of the episode, in our Discord, which is link in the description if you want to join our Discord, because I will be doing a virtual screening of my cut of Revenge of the Sith and the last season of Clone Wars, specifically the Siege of Mandalore. I made like pretty much a 4-hour cut where I take the Siege of Mandalore and cut it into Revenge of the Sith and kind of how it lines up. And so the only way to actually kind of like show that was I can't obviously post that on YouTube because it'll get flagged immediately. So I'm going to do a virtual screen in our Discord channel. We're trying to set up the day. Probably going to take place after the last episode of Ahsoka, sometime thereafter. But if you're interested in wanting to watch that cut that I made, you can go ahead and join our Discord. Again, link is in the description, where also in our Discord, you can submit questions and we will answer them here on the show. And our first one is from A21 Edits, and he asks, so I guess some people are saying that Huyang is the one telling every story in the Star Wars galaxy. I think the Wills must have found him and asked him to tell his stories, and they recorded everything that happened. What do you guys think? What do you think about that, Jarod? That he's part of the Wills and all this type of storytelling.
I like it. I don't. Okay. For as much as I love when Star Wars gets really weird and mythic and like a specific flavor of self-referential, I also like want to avoid he lost the Star War, like the plague.
Okay.
And I don't know. I think that there's a fun little like impulse we have as fans that like we know what the original format was supposed to be, that it was like, the Star like Luke Starkiller and the Star Wars told by the Wills and the like how it's just like this really dense like the title alone is scaring the hose, yeah. That but I'm into it. I love that idea. I love the idea of the Wills, and like there's still this element of the Force that we don't know. Mm-hmm. That there's still this element of the galaxy, of like the far away future where these stories are being told as their own myth. I do think it's an interesting idea.
Yeah.
It just gets into a heady place that I cannot conceive of. I will let other people pitch that idea. I sure. Personally can't like put together and this is how the Wills told the story.
Yeah. I like that in the sense that would mean Huyang lives past Rise of Skywalker, and I'm cool with. I love that for him. So if that's the case, if he's able to tell the whole Skywalker saga and all that, that's great, because then it means he's gonna live all the way through at least the end of Rise of Skywalker to tell the stories of the Star Wars universe. I don't particularly buy into it. If people want to think that and that's their own headcanon, awesome. That's great. That's not where my mind initially went. Next question from Erdan. He's asked, I have a theory that the stormtroopers that Thrawn has are actually undead, maybe spirits in armor like Marak. Yeah, we kind of talked about this a little bit earlier in the episode. I do like that theory that they are, maybe not all of them, but some of them Thrawn was like, "Hey, Nightsisters, Great Mothers, can you liven up the place a little bit with, So I need a little more manpower here as we go back to the other galaxy.
I have a couple dead troopers. Can you make them better?
Right.
Can they get better, please?
Okay. Next one here is from Old Man Ed, and he asks, "What is Baylan actually looking for?" Yeah, we kind of touched upon that earlier too, but it's still, I really don't know. I mean, Kevin has talked about he thinks that maybe Baylan was trying to find access to the world between worlds, and then therefore kind of stop Order 66 from happening or what have you. But I mean, I think that's just a wacky theory he has. I don't think that's the reason. I think it's something. I mean, I don't know. Don't know.
As grim as it is to say, I do not think that Baylan Skoll thinks that the Jedi deserve to be saved from Order 66.
Oh, 100% he doesn't.
I don't think he deserve. I don't think Baylan thinks.
He pretty much says that in this episode.
Yeah, I think. And again, I don't know. I think Baylan is seeking out. Again, I compared him to Traya earlier. How like Traya's take on the galaxy is all chaos and death and destruction is rooted in the fact that you have all these lunatics who want to use the Force and play God. So to avoid that from destroying the galaxy, I'm going to destroy the Force. And I don't think that Baylan is going to like be that much like Traya, but I think his goals are so big picture that we have no way of like fully understanding what his end game is yet.
Yeah, I think we might find out next week, ultimately, just so you have that anticipation of what he may or may not achieve in the final episode of the season. That could happen. So I would hope we get some conclusion to his ultimate motivations, but we'll see. Last question here from Sebastian, and he asks, after last week's episode, I have seen some people discussing that the purrgil that Grogu saw at the beginning of Mando Season 3 were the same ones taking Ahsoka and Huyang to the new galaxy, so Grogu was sensing Ahsoka when he saw them. I actually think this is a pretty neat theory, and for now, will be my headcanon unless it gets proven otherwise in the future. What are your thoughts on that one there, Jarod?
Complete cosign. That moment where we see a purrgil in episode 1 of Season 3 of Mando, like part of me was like, oh, are they just kind of like, hey, just so you know, it's gonna get weird soon. I wasn't sure if they were like setting up anything to do with the hunt for Ezra for Mando Season 3 or not.
Right.
But no, I do like that idea. I like the idea of this happening kind of concurrently with Season 3 of The Mandalorian. Like we've already learned so much about the timeline post Rebels that we didn't expect to. Like, we've already found out that like Ahsoka briefly trained Sabine at one point. We've already learned that the epilogue to Rebels didn't happen until long after the Battle of Jakku. Like that Rebels epilogue, like, and it's, because we all have Star Wars brain. I think we all just kind of assumed like, oh, this is like a day after Endor, when in reality it's been 5 years, 7 years now. So I'm into it until it gets disproven. I think you're probably onto something that Grogu, on some level, if he's not actually seeing that the same purrgil, that he is feeling like something's weird happening and it involves this.
Yeah, I'm not trying to rain on anyone's parade here. If they want to think that's their headcanon, totally cool. I don't think that's what is happening canonically. I just think, they were trying to set up the purrgil as a thing that you're going to end up, they're laying that little seed there in Mando because you're going to see it in Ahsoka. I also think, in terms of Star Wars logic, if you will, if Ahsoka and Huyang are traveling intergalactically to another galaxy, they're traveling at a speed in which, that is way faster than a normal hyperspace lane within the galaxy would permit or need, rather. So, and we know that's the case because of how hyperspace looks with the purrgil and going to another galaxy. We saw that again with the Eye of Sion. And then in your normal quote unquote hyperspace. We see that, with Grogu and Din and everything else we've seen in the Star Wars franchise to this point. So they look different. So I would assume they were moving at different speeds, and therefore my logic would then dictate that could not be the same purrgil because they would be moving way faster. Probably wouldn't even be able to see them, in my estimation. But with that said, I think it's a cool thing to kind of point at and be like, hey, well, what if it is that thing? I think that'd be pretty cool. But and if they wanted someone, Dave wants to be like, actually, yeah, we didn't intend for that to happen, but that's a cool thing. Yeah, let's make that a thing. I think that's totally reasonable.
Yeah.
All right, I think that's gonna wrap it up here for this episode. Jarod, it's been a pleasure talking Star Wars with you once again.
It's always a pleasure to come by.
And let the good people know what you got going on out there.
Yeah, you guys can find me and my show, the Nerd Academy Podcast, on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts. We have our Star Wars show, Knights of the Nerd Republic, where we're obviously covering Ahsoka right now. The main show is going to be coming back here soon. I would like to do like a summer movie roundup. There's stuff that I was late to seeing that we didn't get to cover on the pod. As well as do some, we have our Patreon. Our Versus series is coming back next week. Got to get super caught up on that. We're doing Porter Angle versus Count Dooku. Nice. I have a mini series that's cooking right now with Spencer that we're going to be releasing on our Patreon, and then releasing to the public. So look out for that as well. I'll be on Octo Radio soon, talking about our dream pitch for Battlefront 3 that I have spent. I've basically done like a high school project on, because again, Alden's like, oh yeah, dude, like go whatever level of depth you want to do, and I'm like, I'm gonna write a book. I'm gonna write a book.
Right.
You watched me do this with our little. He was like, hey, you want to come on and explain how the Fandom Menace works? And then it turned into, so now we're going to do an entire 2-hour podcast about Gamergate. My brain is on fire now because I've heard the term ethics in games journalism enough times that it makes me want to run into traffic.
Oh my gosh.
But anyway, yeah, that's where you can find me. Your Academy Podcast.
All right. Awesome. Everyone go check them out over there. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel for more Star Wars content every week. Hit like on this video if you would. It would really help us out. And leave a comment down below on what you thought of this past week's episode of Ahsoka. Part 6, far away. What did you like? What did you maybe not like? What are you anticipating? What are your theories? I want to know all the theories out there because I think this episode was ripe for theorizing. And I can't wait to see what happens in these next 2 episodes. Again, you can follow us on our socials, the app formerly known as Twitter. We have Instagram, TikTok, and Threads. All the links down in our description. Again, our podcast feed, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. You can catch us over there if you enjoy a podcast version of the show. And next week, we're going to be talking about Part 7, the penultimate episode of Ahsoka. I cannot wait to see what we're going to get. But until next time, I'm Frank Janish. That has been Jarod the Dark Jedi, and we will see you all next week.
Scoundrel. Scoundrel. I like the sound of that.